What if it was possible to have local, fresh groceries delivered right to your door? Think of all the free time you'd have. Well, Instacart gives unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. Forgot that special ingredient in your favorite dish? Instacart can deliver it to your front door in as fast as 1 hour. You can shop multiple stores, see deals in your area, and save time and money. I've been using Instacart for over 3 years. I started using them in Arizona, and I'm using them here in Florida. I love the time-saving convenience. They pick the freshest products, and they keep my eggs safe too. To receive your first delivery free, follow the link in the show notes so that Instacart knows that we sent you and to help support the show. Instacart. Never step foot in a grocery store again. Welcome to Empowered Within, a soul-quenching, transformational podcast that will set your soul on fire through candid and inspiring conversations. Leading experts, celebrities, healers, and I share our journeys of how we've overcome challenges to living an empowered life from within. I'm your host, Jennifer Pilates. Welcome to another episode of Empowered Within. Hi there, and welcome to today's show. I am thrilled to have with us Carolin Hauser, a German-trained naturopathic doctor, humanistic psychotherapist, and family constellations facilitator, as well as the author of the award-winning book Blossom, Your 7 Steps to Sexual Healing, and her new Blissful Marriage program. Through writing, speaking, leading workshops, and doing hundreds of hours of one-on-one energy work, Carolin draws a lifetime of study and experience to show how to create a deeply bonded relationship that can last a lifetime. Carolin combines her knowledge of energetic healing and conscious co-creation to help couples transform their relationships from feeling frustrated and stuck and disconnected in their intimacy to feeling deeply connected, excited, and fulfilled so that they can feel whole and fully expressed in life and are able to create those honeymoon feelings. Welcome to the show, Carolin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I am so excited. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you for opening up your program for me to go through. I have found this to be very interesting and can't wait to share it with our listeners today. Will you start with where did your journey begin and how you became the queen of bond-based lovemaking?
Yes. So this might sound a little funny to some people, but literally I remember being up in heaven and I remember like being in kindergarten, you know, where you sit on these little wooden chairs with your friends and we were just minding our own business. And then God came somehow and said, hey, there's problems down on earth. We need some people that, you know, the people on earth, the couples are having problems and we need some of you to go down there and help. And my hand just raised itself automatically. That got me a free ticket into my mother's belly in a sense. And I was born in Germany. And I was born into a family that had a lot of trauma. I mean, a lot of Europeans, have a lot of past trauma and ancestral trauma from just World War II and World War I and so forth. So in my own family, in my great-grandparents, half of the generation was wiped out by the war. So by the time my parents came around, you know, their parents were children during the war. So they had suffered all the trauma. And then my parents were raised by my grandparents who had all the trauma from the war. So there was a lot of unresolved stuff, let's put it that way, right? And it would make sense that if you come to the earth to help people with relationships, you would incarnate or come to a family where there was healing to do. So my own first half of my life almost was really dedicated to, well, first of all, I had a lot of struggle, like we all, you know. I struggled with eating disorders and just with my relationship to God and myself. And I had a really hard time having relationships and understanding men, and I really, really wanted to have a great relationship, and they would just all like quicksand, you know, like break under my own hands or like fall through my fingers. And it was very frustrating. So I just spent a lot of my time and energy on finding healing modalities and figuring things out, and came across family constellations in my early 20s. Up until that time, nothing had helped me with my eating disorders. My parents had schlepped me to art therapy and traditional therapy, and even in front of Buddhist monks. I got blessed by Buddhist monks, and you know, all kind of like literally tried everything, you know, and nothing had helped. And my mom came across this family constellation work, and I got to experience it. And within 3 months, I was completely healed from the eating disorder. So that was the first miracle. And then my life got way better, and I fell in love with an American, came to America, had my children. So life seemed pretty good, but there was still a lot of stuff that wasn't working. Like I wasn't living my purpose. I wasn't making any money. I didn't really have a very fulfilling marriage, even though we were great parents. And so in 2012, so 10 years ago, I had a mental, physical, spiritual, a complete breakdown. And during that moment, when my body collapsed, my soul was catapulted out of my body. I was looking down. My body was laying on the floor. My kids were 1.5 and 5, and they were on top of me and not understanding what was going on. And I couldn't do anything. Like I was just hovering under the ceiling, looking back down, seeing them, and I couldn't do anything. But luckily, in that moment, a voice said, "Well, Carolin, your work isn't done." And I was sent back into my body. And basically, for an entire week, got to experience a state of complete harmony, bliss. You might want to call it enlightenment. It was an experience of seeing that literally everything was already provided for us, and that if we just learn to stay out of resistance or learn to get ourselves into the certain state, that life would just work perfectly. And unfortunately, that state only lasted a week. And ever since then, it's been my mission to find ways and tools to recreate it and help people to have it and have it in my own life.
That sounds, well, I mean, that is so amazing. So tell me about that week. Like, what did you experience? What was going on?
So it basically was a very musical experience that anytime, first of all, I realized that the reason why, and at that point in my life, I was diagnosed with stage 4 adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue and burnout. We were going through bankruptcy. Like I said, I wasn't living my purpose. So a lot of negativity, basically. So I realized that I had brought this negative state of being upon myself. And during that week, anytime I wanted to go into like a self-deprecating thought or think something negative about, oh my God, worry or anything, it was like the music would go out of tune. I was like hearing this nice symphony in a sense playing in the background. And anytime a thought would come, and I was thinking that thought, this music would go out of tune and I just wouldn't think it. Like it was almost like a warning system to not go negative in my own head. And so I just stayed in this positive kind of state of being. And I was living in a pretty shady neighborhood at the time in Santa Barbara, mind you, but in the kind of like the ghettos of Santa Barbara.
I'm sorry, Santa Barbara has ghettos? What?
Well, there's little like track houses along the trains, railroads and stuff, I mean, it was already pretty good, but anyways, I was a little afraid of the people that were living there. Or during this week, I realized how afraid I was of people. And because during that week, I wasn't afraid of people. I would look people in the eyes and they were all friendly and they would do stuff for me and be so helpful. And I was like, why was I afraid of people? Why was I not connecting with people? And people would do stuff for me. And one time I remember I was cooking something and I thought, oh, shoot, I need a lemon. This recipe calls for lemon. And I don't know if somebody knocked on the door or something fell over on the porch. I went outside to the porch and there was a lemon. Like that's how it was. I would think of something and that something was just provided for some way or another. It was completely magical,
Very magical. So where did that take you after that week? Like, did all of a suddenly everything went away and you woke up in the kitchen and thinking, why am I cooking?
No, I got into an argument with my ex-husband and I was like, shit. It all came crumbling back down. But during that week, what God, Spirit, Source, whatever you want to call it, had invited me to do was to go into the pursuit of pleasure, and not pleasure in like a short-term gratification kind of a way, but to really learn to be in tune with myself and start navigating my life based on what felt right and good to me. Mm-hmm. Right. And that at that point, it felt very scary because I realized how much I had made my life choices based on making everybody else around me happy and totally not tuned in with myself,
Right. Yeah.
And so it led to leaving the marriage and going out on my own and, becoming an entrepreneur with no safety net because I'm from Germany, and I didn't have big savings or credit card or anything like that. But I kept taking steps in the direction that felt like, okay, I really need to say yes to these things that are scary, but they're right for me. Mm-hmm. And then in a very short amount of time, my life really went from, like just to give you a graphic example, not that this is about money or anything, but I never made more than $11,000 a year. And after this shift, I started making 6 figures, with doing my purposeful work. I mean, obviously there was work in world wealth and I needed to learn certain skills and things. Mm-hmm. But a lot had to do with me shifting and learning to work with my own energy and having practices that really sustained me and my energy instead of giving it all away to everybody and running myself into the ground.
Wow. So two things here that I'd like to circle back to. One, what were the practices that you were employing to help keep you in alignment?
They had a lot to do with being in nature and, like just making space for my time for myself. So to give you an example, my son was 1.5 years old and I still was pretty much the primary caregiver. So I had 15 hours a week without needing to take care of either of them and just to myself. And I would literally spend 10 of those hours meditating, resting, going to the beach, taking nature walks, going dancing, like doing painting. And everybody needs to find what does it for them, taking baths, things like that, just so that I would feel good and rested. And then I would spend 5 hours on building my business, doing marketing or messaging or connecting with people or going networking or...
That's wonderful. I love that balance that you're showing there. That's super important for our listeners to hear. And then during that time, what were the passions that you were following that you started to align with, that you were implementing in your entrepreneurial life?
So it was definitely, obviously, helping other people. Like I really allowed myself to help other people. And I've always been very passionate about energy and figuring out how can we truly be living our most optimum life, in a sense. That has been my passion and it is my passion, right? And so along the way, I've picked up some other practices that have also to do with how couples can manage the energy. And I'm super passionate about, helping, being a couple and having the feminine and the masculine really be supportive of each other. So I just started studying Alison Armstrong, for example. She has done a lot of work on understanding men. I really wanted to be with my soulmate and have that kind of relationship. And so I dedicated a lot of time to learning and, practicing things, being in my feminine, things like that. Yeah.
Very challenging. So what one piece of advice would you say? Because not everyone understands the masculine and the feminine. So how do you go about to make sure that you keep it balanced? Because we each, as men and women, have that within us. I would say, and you can tell me what you're thinking, the last 10, 20 years, women in general, we've really been leading with our masculine much more than our feminine, and then not understanding why relationships and marriages are not working out.
Yeah, and our health also.
And our health as well. Yes, yes.
So it is like learning really a new way of being. And one of the things that's been most helpful for me is to, first of all, to learn to communicate from your feelings. So when you're communicating, instead of having a whole novel that you're dumping at somebody, to say, hey, I'm feeling sad right now. I'm feeling happy right now. I'm feeling whatever. And I want, like, learning to communicate differently and learning to communicate in emotions, because it makes it so that you actually have to connect with yourself, right? You can't just say, I feel something, unless you actually take a moment and connect with yourself and feel. So the feminine is all about, the healthy feminine is all about really being in your body and being grounded in your body, and switching this communication part helps you be more in your body. And then doing all these, the practices I shared with you, they also help me very much to be in my body, just feeling the sand under my feet or feeling the water on my skin. The more we can have spaciousness and allow ourselves to do things that involve our senses during that time, the more it helps us to be relaxed, and open. And those are all feminine qualities.
Right. And then what do you say for those who go, oh, I don't get it. Carolin, what's wrong with my house? It's black, it's white, it's gray. That's fine for me. Because there's that external environment too, right, that affects the internal. And a lot of people don't realize that's also how we throw off the divine feminine within and the masculine and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, it starts with creating your home as a sacred place. Even though if you feel like you're fine, if somebody listening to this, if everything was perfect, they wouldn't be listening, right? So,
right.
So just to start imagining, a lot of us have been programmed or trained to be okay with very little, right? So what if you expanded your horizon, and if you could really have, most people, they don't want to have to get up at 6 o'clock. They don't want to have to run their kids to school. They don't want to have to be in the car all day. If you truly had a choice, would you choose that kind of lifestyle, or would you choose a lifestyle where you do have more time, where you actually have time to spend with the people you love, where you can be more connected to nature, where you have time to be creative, right? but most people don't think it's possible.
Well, because we're taught the grind.
Exactly.
High school, college, get married, have kids, that grind, work 9 to 5, go home, take care, do everything. And you can't be everything to everyone and nothing to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So explain to me what bonding-based lovemaking is.
Yes, my pleasure. So one of the practices that couples can do to really help them with their energy and their health and sense of abundance is learning a new way of lovemaking. And when I talk about bonding-based lovemaking, it usually jars people a little bit because this is the most likely information you've never heard. I'm going to suggest something to you that sounds I'm going to warn everybody already. Everybody's listening. This is going to shock you. Probably it shocked me when I heard this, but I'm just asking you to keep an open mind. So I did not come up with bonding-based lovemaking. About 5 years ago, my relationships still weren't that great. They were on a lot of roller coasters and stuff, and I really, really wanted to make it work. So I was in a kind of desperate place because I had tried so many other things. A friend of mine handed me a book called Cupid's Poisoned Arrow. It wasn't written by me. It was written by Marnia Robinson. And in that book, Marnia, the author, kind of described what was going on with my relationships. They would start out amazing, and then they would just kind of like implode, explode, or dwindle out, or go sour. But they wouldn't. The honeymoon feelings never lasted, and I just couldn't believe why. And she also didn't want to believe that was just so. And so she went on a quest of exploring why that was happening to human couples, and started with exploring ancient love practices, tantra, Taoist lovemaking, and found clues in those writings where the wise people, the sages, were suggesting to have some constraint when it comes to lovemaking. And specifically, they were suggesting to make love in a way where they were basically not having orgasms or withholding ejaculating. It was mostly geared towards the men. Like there were warnings that if the men went too crazy and spread their semen all over, that they would make the women crazy and that they would go crazy themselves and stuff like that. So they warned basically about, having too much of it. And so Marnia started practicing this. She started finding guys that were willing to practice this with her. And eventually she met who became her husband. And he had already been, he's a biology teacher and was already into neuroscience and so forth. And when they came together, they pretty much rediscovered, and I'm saying rediscovered because I think that what they discovered was knowledge that we had in ancient cultures, that the human being actually has two programs for lovemaking. One that's strictly for procreation. It's connected to an orgasm because nature had to be super clever to keep us doing this thing so that the species survives in a sense. Unfortunately, that program is not in favor of people creating really deep bonds and staying together because nature wants diversity. So in a sense, we have this program that's connected to making baby that if we stay in that program, we're also programmed to find each other boring and just get restless and find things wrong with each other and move on.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it's biology in a sense. The good news is that there's an entirely different program that engages or activates a different set of hormones that is also very, very pleasurable. It is not like an orgasm. It's a different kind of a pleasure. It's more like an ongoing, good feeling, stable feeling, all day long kind of feeling, never ending kind of a feeling. So it's not a quick high. It's just a very pleasurable feeling that you get through connecting physically with each other. And I mean, there's still intercourse, but just different. It activates oxytocin, which is also a survival, just like the procreation is a survival program. But we have a bonding program to help us bond with each other for surviving, because we survive better if we're really deeply bonded, and it functions on oxytocin. And oxytocin, when we have a lot of oxytocin flowing in our system, we feel peaceful, we feel connected, we are creative, we feel happy, we feel stable, right? And so when we basically learn to transition out of the procreation-based lovemaking and into the bonding-based lovemaking, it brings a ton of benefits to our lives, not just for our health in terms of stabilizing our hormones, like literally reversing a lot of autoimmune stuff, chronic pain, because it also has a very beneficial impact on our nervous system. And it just really allows our bodies to recharge and regenerate, because the procreation-based lovemaking uses dopamine, and dopamine is really a highly addictive hormone or neurotransmitter, which makes it so that we have high spikes in our brains. And then when we have a spike, it also goes down. So essentially, when we're still on the orgasm roller coaster, it's literally like being a drug addict who has the high and then has the low for kind of 2 weeks. Like there's brain research that shows that once you have an orgasm, it takes 2 weeks for your brain to come back to its normal state. And during that time, you kind of feel shitty, depressed, irritable, and that's where a lot of conflicts start. And we don't know this because we don't, like, once you have this piece of knowledge, the best thing, now that I've told you this, instead of saying, oh, this is not possible, like entertain the possibility that this is possible and start looking for evidence in your own life. And some people, when I share this with, they're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful somebody says something, because I've been really feeling really drained and I don't even want to have sex anymore because I just feel so bad afterwards. And, I feel connected for a moment while we're doing it, but then afterwards we have these big fights and it makes no sense. And it's so painful because we feel so close and then we feel so far apart. And why is this happening?
Interesting.
And it's happening because of our inner chemistry changing.
Wow. And no, I've never heard of this in my entire life. I find this fascinating. So now let me ask you, what you're describing in the bonding-based lovemaking, is this different than Tantra sex?
Yes.
Okay.
Very different. Because in Tantra, it's all about, how long can you really have orgasms and how many orgasms can you have? So in a sense, in Tantra, it's really more about like getting even more extreme dopamine productions and highs, which is really not good for you. It doesn't bond you to a person. It's not good in terms of, like, it's great if you want to have amazing highs, basically, right? Mm-hmm. But in terms of like creating a stable union, that's the opposite.
Are you ready to lose inches, increase strength, and tone your body from head to toe? Are you ready for a total body, mind, and spirit transformation? I am excited to announce that I am launching my exclusive 8-week Pilates Return to Life training program. This will give you an opportunity to have a total body, mind, and spirit transformation of health and wellness to a new lifestyle. Imagine in 7 days you will feel a difference, in 14 days you will see a difference, and in 8 weeks you will have your new Pilates body. So what do you say? Want to join me on the mat? Head over to jenniferpilates.com today. Space is limited. Use this special promo code EW and the word special, EW special, to receive $200 off while space is available. Head on over to jenniferpilates.com and I'll see you on the mat. So how do I ask, how does this work? Meaning...
How graphic do you want me to get?
I know. I'm sort of like, well, you can't just leave me there. Like, yes. I need to know how this works. Yes. Yeah. No, we need, because I can just feel like listeners are going to be like, well, how does this work? Like, don't make me go YouTube just yet. Like, how does this work? Like, we got to know.
And there is not that much. I mean, there's some stuff on YouTube, but you can't get really super graphic.
I know. So
first of all.
Yeah, go the first layer. Like, just get us there.
Yeah. So Marnia came up with exchanges. She calls them ecstatic exchanges. So for anybody who wants to transition, the best way is to read the book and then get help from somebody, because our subconscious usually puts up blocks because we've never done it. And so getting help with subconscious block removal is really important so that you can actually transition, and then doing the exchanges the way that she has them in the book. And first of all, if you're sexually active, you have to wean yourself off the dopamine on one hand, but you also have to do what's called bonding behaviors. They're things that register as deeply satisfying in our brain because we have these built-in bonding cues. So looking each other in the eyes, getting loving attention, just when you were a baby, basically, right? Like your mom swaddled you and cuddled you. And so a lot of it is about getting out of touching the other person so that you can get turned on, or so that they can get turned on, and get and switch into a way of giving to each other, where the attention is just on comforting touch. That registers in the brain as deeply satisfying and safe. So while you're not having orgasms and while you're not having normal sex, you get something else that starts feeling good also, right? So just having sex with no orgasms will be very, very frustrating. That is not what it is.
Okay.
So with the bonding based lovemaking also, for it to be successful, it really needs to happen a lot. So my day usually starts with at least a half an hour of like real like good cuddling, like really giving each other attention, me to him and him to me. And then every other day in the evenings or in the mornings, we make love. So every other day we make love. Every evening we spend at least an hour doing these bonding behaviors and cues. And so, one day is lovemaking, one day is not lovemaking. But we spend at least half an hour in the morning connecting in this very specific way with the bonding behaviors and our attention on each other, and do the same thing an hour in the evening. And then ideally, you have like one or two longer stretches throughout the day. So let's say like a Monday afternoon or a Saturday morning where you're not interrupted, where you could just be with each other for 2 or 3 hours and really deeply relax. And you do make love, but there is not a lot of genital friction. So the more you learn to be with each other physically and relax with each other and give to each other in this loving way, there is and this is just my theory, there is a second program, energy program in our body that starts kicking in, and all of a sudden kissing and touching and just even slowly moving with each other starts feeling amazing, Wow. It takes a little while to wean yourself off the dopamine and feeling like you're not getting what you're normally used to, but it doesn't have to take very long. And then this other thing starts just feeling super delicious, and you just feel so happy and blessed and ready to tackle your day and be super productive, and because it's such a rigid schedule in a sense, it gives your nervous system and your subconscious a way of knowing that your needs are taken care of. You don't have to worry about when you're getting any anymore, because you just know. And you really have a sense of like, I feel so well taken care of. All my needs are met, because our sexual needs are like some of our base. We need them, like we need this, we need connection, like we need food and air, and we've just not learned how to give it to each other in the correct way where it really can last and doesn't ever have to end the honeymoon feelings.
Right. So within this schedule, when you say you're love making, are we having orgasms?
No,
we're not.
It is intercourse, but just very slow and very relaxed. Men don't even have to stay hard, which is another mind boggler, right? Yeah. And it's really about like the bodies start to just communicate with each other, and you get more tuned into your skin, even inside of your genitals, So just touching each other feels super amazing. That's the best way I can describe it.
Interesting. So there's no traditional orgasm. I'll use it in that phrase.
And it's more of a feeling of like being deeply relaxed and lifting off together, like on a mushroom cloud or something, like a feeling of oneness and just deeply connected. And you're so in tune with each other. Like, I know exactly that if I just stroke my hands down her spine right now, it will just make it feel so good. It's like you're totally in sync with each other and just give each other a ton of pleasure without needing to go anywhere. This feeling of like, we need to start moving faster, or, there needs to be more pounding or anything like that.
How very interesting.
It is very different than anything that I've done ever, for sure, before,
Yeah, definitely.
And most people.
I've not heard of this before. I think this is very interesting. I think a lot of people have some homework to do, is what I think.
Yeah. And really the best way is just to, commit to trying it for at least like 3 weeks, because it takes 2 weeks to kind of get over out of the dopamine cycle. Even if you haven't, if you haven't been intimate, it still takes like 2 weeks to get a really good sense. Like if you can commit to kind of like doing the exchanges the way they are in the book, they're 3 weeks basically, and then go back to regular sex, then you really feel the difference.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, for those couples out there, for, her saying, oh, geez, haven't had sex in forever, or we're more like roommates now. I don't know about this. I don't know. It kind of sounds like it might be a really great option to give it a whirl.
Oh, yeah. And it's amazing how quickly it can come back. And, obviously, if there is emotional issues that aren't resolved, we'll have to resolve them in the process, because you can't have true intimacy and be deeply, madly in love with each other and hold on to grudges at the same time. That's why I'm saying it's good to not just do it by yourself, not just get the book and do it by yourself, but have somebody, like me, to support you in that journey, to help you with the emotional stuff that comes up along that journey.
So what suggestions or thoughts, advice do you have for couples who may be in a pickle of a situation, shall we say, who are struggling to overcome hurts, whether that be infidelity or just frustrations or lack of communication? What advice can you give to those couples?
I would really suggest that they get the book and read the book and see if it makes sense to them, and that they entertain the idea that talking about it and general therapy is not going to solve the issue. It has to do with something different, and it has to do with the way that they've been making love. Even though if they're not making love right now, they might say, well, we're not making love, but you did make love, or you had regular sex at some point, and you've fallen into the trap that everybody falls into, where you just get habituated to each other and get bored with each other. It is the root. I believe it's the root cause for a disconnection to begin with. And then I do have a free training on my website that people can just watch, and where it's explained a little bit more and the step that it really takes to transition. And there is hope. I mean, I see it every day with the couples that I help. They're afraid. They don't know how it's going to happen. Some people haven't had sex in like years, and the moment they stick to these practices to do it, this other thing kicks in. And see, the thing is, when you really deeply bond with somebody, you start feeling happy and content. And when you're happy and content, you don't even remember the grudges. You're like a different person. You can't, like I said, it is an uplifting practice, where rather than having to work through things and going to therapy and all that stuff, even though therapy has its place, I don't want to badmouth therapy. For somebody who's in crisis, it's good to have somebody that they can talk to and so forth. But in terms of like shifting this, it really is much more of a physical practice, and you can be happy and the way you were when you first started in a very short amount of time, without grueling, rehashing everything and having to work through things and things like that.
Yeah, I found that fascinating. I found that there was something that you wrote, that there's scientific evidence that you said that shows that the lack of, why most people go to therapy, let's just say, is because they feel they're not communicating right, and he's not listening or she's not listening. But really, it all comes down to the love making that you are or are not doing, or how you're not doing it. Yeah,
and you are, because of it. Like when your hormones are in the right state and you feel amazing, you have way more patience. You have way more love to give, right?
So
like
true.
When you're drained and stressed, you don't have a big bandwidth to give to anybody.
Right. Valid point. And so this practice, again called the bonding-based lovemaking, is what keeps your hormones, both as a female and a male, balanced. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. So maybe not even needing, because in this day and age, it's become such a big deal to get replacement hormone therapy. Now you would be developing your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone in different levels. So maybe,
I'm off everything. I mean, I had to take replacement hormones and stuff, and from my adrenal fatigue and the chronic burnout and thyroid problems, and it's all balanced itself out. Really? And I know from other stories, and Marnia shares this in her book. Her husband was an alcoholic and was addicted to painkillers because he had chronic back pain when they met. And within 4 months, he was able to stopped drinking. He didn't need it anymore. His anxiety went away, right? Because anxiety also comes from nervous system and hormone system being out of whack.
Right. Oh, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many health benefits above and beyond the obvious. Just a wonderful experience to bond with your partner, to have natural hormones balanced. That sounds lovely.
Yep.
That's great. I love it.
And even, a lot of people come and they say, well, our sex drive is just different. Like since I've had the kids, I just have super low libido. It's just because when you have sex the regular way, it's draining, and your body naturally just goes like, I don't want this anymore. When you go into this other, where actually you feel like you're being super pampered and get everything, your body just starts like, oh yeah, give me more. And it starts, all of a sudden, it's not so much about libido, but about like your body just getting what it needs and saying, yummy, give me more of this, and becoming lubricated. And, all these issues also go away that people normally associate with, low testosterone or low, whatever, low libido. No,
Correct.
They become non-issues.
Or like when women and men begin in their 40s and their 50s, exactly what you're saying. Interesting. So all those sort of issues kind of go away?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. I love this. We need to do like a test. Yeah. I want to do like a test trial. This is phenomenal.
Yes. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So what in general, in knowing everything that you've gone through in your life, what couple of pieces of advice would you give to couples who really desire to say, okay, like we want this to be like a healthy, happy relationship. I want that. But I'll tell you what, Carolyn, I'm exhausted and I don't know. What do we say?
Well, the first thing to realize is that you will never have control over outside circumstances, other people, anything outside of you. The only thing that you have control over is you. And the thing that's been most important and most helpful in my life is to take responsibility for my own energy management, right? To really figure out what are the things that I need so that I feel really good on a physical level, emotional level, spiritual level, and energetic. And in a sense, become really selfish, really self-centered, to learn to provide these things for yourself. And even if you start with baby steps, but where you start really giving to yourself, because to be in a blissful relationship, part of it is to become like a blissful, happy person, not necessarily just by yourself and a single person, but in essence, I am responsible to make sure that I have the time that I need to eat, that I have the time to rest, that I have good food that I need, those like basic things really. Mm-hmm. And then when I do that, my energy gets better, and then I have energy to do the things that I want to do. Most people, it's not the time that we don't have, it's the energy that we don't have. Mm-hmm. We all have the same amount of time, but most of us don't have the energy to do the things that we want to do because we're so drained by the end of the day because we do all the things we don't want to do.
Right. And you touched on something there, and we should address this. So for our singles out there who are taking time to maybe be by themselves and get themselves together and work on themselves, what suggestions do you give to that person? Because you've also been in that particular position before.
Yeah, I would still recommend reading the book and see if it's making sense. And then if you are dating, I started dating with having a really clear boundary that this was the only sex I wanted to have, and it was tricky because how do you tell that to a guy that you barely know, so it was also a good weeding out system for me because I was really clear I met the right person that this resonated with and that was willing to, that had also been fed up. And for him, it was more like, he had felt so under pressure to perform and felt like very, like not insecure, but just like wasn't really enjoying sex so much anymore either because there was so much pressure from all the women. Mm-hmm. And so then I came along with this like, and he was like, oh, good, this feels so nice. Like there's no more pressure to perform all the time. So just having, getting the education and being courageous about bringing it up. That way you will find the people that resonates with. And I'm finding that there's a lot of men that want something different and that want to figure out how to connect better. And they think it's tantra or, like they have ideas of what it could be. And so they're open, to learning this and then learning it together.
Right. And since we're in this incredible time right now in our lives where everything is, I just keep saying, we're all just in this snow globe and it just keeps getting shaken every day.
Yep.
Why not shake up something? Be it if you're, single and you're hoping to find your soulmate or you feel you're with your soulmate. You have nothing to lose to give this a try.
Yeah. And this is such a good point that you just made with, everything around us being so crazy and changing all the time. You need to find a way to create the peace and stability in your home and within you. If you don't, like, you go mad in this world.
Oh, 100%. You absolutely can. And then the relationship's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
Right. So how can the program that you have that you were so generous to share with me, the Blissful Marriage Method, let's talk about that a little bit because that's pretty cool. How can that help our couples that are out there?
Yeah. So in that program, I really teach I start from the beginning with really understanding energy and what it means in your life and sharing the practices that will ultimately help you, aside from the bonding-based lovemaking. There's one single practices, things that you can do in your everyday life that help you take care of you in a sense. Part of why, most of you listening, you're probably saying, well, I've tried to make more time and I just can't. There's never enough support, never enough money, never enough whatever. The reason why that is because in all of our subconscious, we are not trained to be thriving. Everything that we've seen modeled around us and that our ancestors have gone through, for most of us, for 99% or 95% of us, it was just about survival, right? And so there's the subconscious controls a huge percentage of our decisions and how we see the world and how we see what's possible for us. And it does it by images. So if in our subconscious, we have an image of we can only survive if we work really, really hard. You can try doing these practices I just talked about all day long, and your subconscious will not allow you to find the time because your subconscious wants you to survive. And if in your subconscious, hard work is connected to surviving, that's the only thing you'll be able to do. So part of where the family constellation work or the energy work that we do comes in is by going into your subconscious, finding the places that don't let you do these practices, they don't let you do the things that that you consciously should be doing. We find those places and we basically erase them or transform them so that then your subconscious gets on board. And once you have your subconscious on board with your conscious mind, then everything becomes automatic and easy, right? And that's the piece that most people are missing. Right? We can try to do something new with our conscious mind for a little while, but very, very quickly we're worn down by the minutia.
Right.
We've all experienced that, right? So, and then the other part is when you're in a program like mine, you have the community of other people that are doing this also. Since this is something so new and so different. You can't talk to your friends about it. They think you're crazy. The amount of people that have made fun of me because of this, I can't even count on 50 hands probably. So you can't really talk to anybody about this without risking ridicule. But we have a really strong community and group. And so you have people that you can talk about and that can affirm you and that share their experiences and you can learn from them, which that's actually proven to be hugely beneficial,
Yeah, a sense of community is everything that everyone's looking for right now, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like an incredible program and opportunity for our listeners to take advantage of. And all of Carolin's information will be over in the show notes. So, Carolin, we are getting to this time in the show where I ask this one question. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is one thing that no one knows about Carolin Hauser?
That's a question. I don't know if there's anything because I live such a transparent life. I have lived in a tent for 9 months on Canary Islands.
Really? How amazing. Now, was this by choice or was this by universe?
It was by choice. It was at a retreat center, not on the street, not at a campground. It was at a retreat center, but the way that you live there was just in a, very simple,
What one aha moment did you take away from that time?
How little we really need to be happy. I mean, it's one of the times that I was happiest, and it was just me and nature and the people there. And we had a very rhythmical life, it was very, routine basically. And it was very liberating.
Right. How beautiful. Oh, that sounds amazing right about now. A tent in nature. I love that.
On the ocean. It was right next to the ocean. I mean, there was a big mountain and the ocean was right. So you were wedged in between the mountain and the ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. So it was very wild nature.
Oh, that's heaven to me. A mountain, an ocean, and a little bit of grass. That's all a girl needs.
Yep.
Wow. Well, Carolin, thank you so much for being on the show today. Will you share with our listeners where they can connect with you?
Yes. The best way is to go to my website and it's just my name, Carolin, Carolin, no E. Hauser, Hauser.com. You could just go to the Work With Me page and request a free session with me. And then the same thing on Facebook. It's just in my name. I live on Facebook, basically. I love to connect with people. And if you send me a messenger message, I'll respond to you.
Wonderful.
Sure.
That's great. Thank you so much, Carolin. This has been such an amazing session. Thank you for sharing your journey and all of your incredible insights to help us live a happy and blissful life, be it while we're searching for our soulmate or with our soulmate now.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, as we say, until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Empowered Within with Jennifer Pilates. Your feedback is important. It helps me to connect with you and gives me insight into who you are and what you're enjoying about the show. For today's show notes and discount codes from today's sponsors, head over to jenniferpilates.com. Until next time, may you live an empowered life from within.